Hey you guys, it is High Value Romantic here. I'm just getting the slide up. So make sure to follow us because we're going to be talking about, things for generational curse breakers, especially those who know that they have the generational curse of anti-marriage on their bloodline and are just desiring to break that, are desiring to do it God's way. So make sure to follow along and share this video as well as, our posts and stuff like that, to invite other generational curse breakers as well. So today we're talking about Esther versus Vashti. I just had to get on here and share this because I just thought this revelation was so good. And so it came about because I've been reading this book called Cracking the Communication Code by Emerson Eggerichs. Now, this book is so deep. I think it might be also called like Learning Your Mate's Language or something like that. But as long as you type in Cracking the Communication Code and Emerson Eggerichs, the book will come up. It's like a yellow and like burgundy book now. So I first picked up this book back in like July of 2023, after I had first started my dating journey. And I was like, ooh, I need to work on myself more. And so the first thing I did after saying like, I'm going to go on a dating sabbatical was pick up this book. And this book was actually recommended to me probably maybe even a year or more before I actually even decided to read it. It was by like a married woman in this random group that I happened to be in at the time. And so the Lord actually prompted me to like read it again recently. And so when I read it the first time, I was literally in tears because I had no clue about some of the differences, in the needs between men and women. And it was just so eye-opening for me. Reading it again now, I'm just like, ugh. It's still so good. So I highly recommend it because, in a relationship, it's not just about your needs. Actually, if you are, getting married, you're committing to meeting the other person's needs versus committing to, getting your needs met. That's just the way of the kingdom. You give, it's better to give than to receive. But what happens when you meet other people's needs is that they typically end up trying to meet your needs. It's like you literally begin to provoke people to treat you better just because you're treating them better. You're sowing and reaping. And so what I've learned is that, women need love and men need respect. And so before, I think I wasn't necessarily able to articulate that. I just knew like, this man right here, he just does not seem loving, but I didn't have the language for that. And all this time, men were thinking like, okay, well, this person, this girl here, she's not respectful. And so the concept of, love and respect is not that you love the unlovable behavior or that you respect the behavior that is not respectable, but it's that you confront those things in a loving and respectful manner because the felt need is different. Basically, like women need to feel love and men need to feel respect. And this has just been like such a crazy thing to me because I've been implementing it in my life with different men in the workplace, family members, and just really any man that comes across my path. I'm like, I'm going to sow respect. It's literally like a gift that you can give to a man because, you just never know what someone is going through in their life, whether it's in a romantic way or just in a, platonic way. It's good to sow that respect because men that are not in a relationship or that you're not in a romantic relationship with still need respect, and you just don't know what's going on, in their lives. But let me also mention this as well. If you don't know the needs of a man, then it's probably not your time to get married, right? Because again, relationships, especially a marriage, is not so that you can get your needs met. By the grace of God, more than likely you're going to get your needs met, but you shouldn't be coming to the relationship with expectations anyways, right? And so a lot of people do go into it with expectations, or they decide to, get into a relationship, get married because they're getting older or because of loneliness. But that's no indication that it's actually your time to get married. The time for you to get married is probably when you understand the needs of the opposite sex and you're willing to meet those without expectations. So the Bible literally says, oh shoot, I should have had the verse up, but basically it says, that husbands should dwell together with their wives according to knowledge. I think it's in Hebrews, giving honor to the weaker vessel as the wife. Let me find that for you guys right quick, because I want to make sure I am giving you the scripture. I believe it is in Hebrews. It's actually in 1 Peter 3 verse 7. So it says, likewise, ye husbands, dwell with your wives with understanding, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. And so we realize that love is not enough to sustain a marriage. It's about meeting the needs of the other person. And you should want to meet their needs, because you're not getting married just so you can be selfish and, only get your needs met. That's not really a relationship. You know what I mean? So if the husbands have to dwell together with us according to knowledge, of course, us as, future wives, we as well have to dwell together with our husbands according to knowledge. And so that's why we read these books and stuff like that. The Bible also says in Proverbs 11 verse 9 b, that it's through knowledge that the just shall be delivered. So as you are on this, dating journey, this journey towards marriage, and you're working on yourself, one of the best things that you can do is get knowledge of the needs of what, the opposite sex needs, of your own needs as well, and just things that will make a marriage, work and thrive and stuff like that. The devil is out here way too busy for you to just waltz into marriage because you said you was getting older or you're lonely. It just does not work like that. It was already a war, before you got married. And especially if you're coming from a family that has the generational curse of anti-marriage, you have to be that much more careful and just strategic and diligent. And so getting the knowledge will be, your best friend, essentially. Okay. So with all that being said, this is why this live came about, because men, I'm realizing, really need respect. They crave it, and they need it to even function well. It's so deep that I started to find this concept in Esther as well, right? So Esther versus Vashti. We all know, the synopsis of the story, but I'll tell you it again. Vashti essentially was the queen when this story is starting, and the king Ahasuerus or Artaxerxes. It says both names, but in different versions and stuff like that. He was throwing a party, and during that party, he asked for his wife, Queen Vashti, to come through and show herself to his men friend. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I rule the kingdom and everything like that. Come through. I got the baddest chick. Can you, just show yourself for a second so that everybody can know what's up? Now, men having this ego and this need for respect, he gave her a command and he's expecting her to meet that command. And sis was like, nah, I'm good. It's okay. And so if you haven't read this before, I definitely highly recommend that you read this. But because of what she did, the men literally was like, no, she has to go, because her disrespect, her dishonor was not just dishonor to you as a king, but because of her example of dishonor, it's going to cause a ripple effect, and it's actually going to affect the whole entire nation. Because if the households are not good, the households are the people that's going to work every day and they're doing whatever. But if the men are not receiving the proper respect that they, need to even function, then they're just like, yeah, society's about to crumble. Vashti got to go. And so I'm going to read a few verses of it, because these words are going to come up, maybe when we do like later studies or something like that. And it's just so important to understand when you're talking about love and respect, right? Okay, computer, let's not do all of that. Computer, let's load. So I'm in Esther 1, and let's start from verse 10. Okay, or verse 9. Okay, it says, also Vashti the queen made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Memucan, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the royal crown, or the crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look on. Verse 12. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlain. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. So I want you to look at the response of the king when the queen did not honor his request. He became angry. He became angry because she literally just did not come and honor his request. Verse 13 says, then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner towards all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Mariz, Marsena, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to law? Because she hath not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in the provinces of King Ahasuerus. All she did, y'all, was not come before the king because she was like, nah, I'm not about to let you just parade me around these people. I don't know what she was thinking at that time, but she didn't come before the king. And now they trying to figure out like what we gonna do, because she did not just diss the king. She literally almost tore down a nation. Verse 17 says, for this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes. When it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. Contempt. Remember that word, contempt. Not for this study, but just in general. Remember the words despise, and remember the words contempt. Okay. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. And when the king's decree, which he shall make, shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the words of Memucan. Is that not wild, y'all? She dishonored her husband, and she got taken out of her position. That is saying something. Disrespect and dishonor, it goes a long way, especially towards a man who actually needs this. And this is the way that God made them. So it's not like it's a bad desire. Of course, there are people in everything in life that are going to pervert it or try to, forcefully get honor, or there's women who try to forcefully get love, etc., right? But those desires are not bad, because those are the desires that God gave us. That's the way that God made us. But she literally got taken out of office because she was disrespectful. Now, just a couple of things I wrote down. So when Vashti dishonored the king, he became angry. It also angered the princes, and they said that she wronged the whole nation, and she was setting a wrong example for marriages. The second thing is, the men interpreted that she despised her husband. So it was dishonor, but the way that the men interpreted it was that she despised her husband, that she didn't even like him. And what despise means in that chapter, it means to hold in contempt, to be despicable, to be vile, worthless, disdained, scorn, thought to scorn, or disesteem. So literally by what she did, because of that dishonor, it seemed as if she thought her husband was worthless. And imagine doing this to a king. Your husband, whoever he is a king before God, right? He's an honorable man, even when sometimes he doesn't do, what you would consider worthy of respect. But when you respectfully confront that man, where you continue to show him the respect and the honor that he, may not deserve by his actions, but he deserves by virtue of the position and the way that God made him, and the commands that God has given us to wives, to honor, respect our husbands. It just is what it is. We do have to do that by God's instructions. And the third thing is, if Vashti wasn't taken out of office, it would have literally ruined the whole nation, because then the men would have been dishonored in their homes and, unable to function properly. So those are the notes on Vashti, right? She disobeyed her husband, dishonored him, and they took her out of her position. Now let's look at Esther. So in Esther 2, we see that because of what Vashti did and got taken out of position, now they're looking for a new wife for the king, right? And so let's go to Esther 2, verse 8 through 9. And it says, "So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her things for purification, with such as belonged to her, and 7 maidens which were meet to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maids unto the best place of the house of the woman." Now, what the heck was Esther doing? Because how did she get someone to favor her so much that she ended up getting the best place in the palace and she got all her stuff before everybody else? She done skipped the line, right? How does she please literally everyone that she meets? Because we're about to read in this next verse here that she obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. But how? Okay. So Esther 2, verse 15 to 17, we're just jumping down a little bit in that chapter. And it says, "Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go in unto the king, she required nothing but what Haggai the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus into his house royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Now, what was different about Esther? Because everyone got purified. Everyone got a turn to go before the king. And as a matter of fact, Esther actually went in with less and was still chosen. Because it says that she only took what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, told her to take. She wasn't into taking all them things, I guess, that the other women were taking. And it says that, and the king loved Esther above all the women. Now, men don't naturally tend to show love, right? But when we as women show them respect, show them that honor, that is what will provoke a man to show love. So that was making me to think Esther might have been honoring this man. She might have just been a respectful person, because she done won the favor of Haggai. Now she became queen. All this favor, she had to know something. She had to know how to honor a man. So let's find out, did she really know how to? So let's go to Esther 4 verse 11, right? And so what we're about to see here is that both Esther and Vashti, they disobeyed King Ahasuerus, but the difference was that Vashti dishonored him and Esther honored him. Now, Esther 4 verse 11, it says, all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his, to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. So she had no right to actually go in unto the king, because she had not been called there. So technically, by going there, she was disobeying him, right? But when she goes before her husband, the response that she gets was like just amazing. So we're going to look at a few things about Esther, just to prove that she was a woman who offered honor to King Ahasuerus, and basically, honestly, to everybody, because that's how she was obtaining favor in their sight. So after they did their fast and stuff, and what I love about Esther is that even though she fasted, she worked things out in the realms of the spirit, she still came back to use physical things. She still took the relevant actions in the physical realm, even though she had did her spiritual stuff, right? Because faith without works is dead. So let's go to Esther 5 verse 1 through 8. And it says, now it came to pass on the 3rd day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house, and the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. So she still got dressed, still got cute, and went before this man. And she obtained that favor. Verse 3 says, then said the king unto her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall even be given to thee to the half of the kingdom. She didn't manipulate her husband. Instead, she appealed to the highest authority, which is God. She didn't try to be her husband's Holy Ghost. She didn't go to him and say, babe, they're trying to kill up all the Jews. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you sign that petition? No, she went to God, did what she had to do in the realms of the spirit, then she went about it and did the physical things. It says, and Esther answered, if it seemed good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther has said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition? It shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Then Esther answered and said, my petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king has said. My goodness. We can learn some things from Esther. So we already talked about the fact that she was not manipulating her husband towards her own will, even though what she was asking for was God's will for, the Jews to live. She didn't manipulate her husband to her own will. She went to God to appeal to him for God's will to come to pass. That's very important. Second, even though she called on the help of God, she did have an understanding of men, and she went before her husband honorably and looking good. Because, the men like to see us looking good, ladies. Okay? 3, she met the king's need before she ever asked for her request. So instead of just coming to him with her request, she was like, I'm going to throw him a banquet and honor the heck out of this man. And then when she even went to the first banquet, she was like, no, that's not enough. She went, my request is that you come back tomorrow so I can honor you again. Then I'll tell you my request. That is womankind sauce. That is like respect on a whole nother level. She wasn't looking to get her needs met first. She was meeting his need first. And it's not to say that men should not, take the lead and, show you love and all these things, because of course they should. But it's saying that you come without your expectations and you respect them because you're doing it as unto God. Only the serious people will hear me and understand what I'm saying. You might have to rewatch this so you can really get the message. But she met the king's need for honor, for respect, before she ever asked for her request. And the fourth thing is just that she picked her timing very well, because she didn't just go before him and ask right away. But no, she waited until this man was, honored on top of honor. And then she told, him what the request was. And so this concept of respect is so deep that, we can find different examples of this with, different Bible characters throughout. And also like Abigail, she's a great example of someone who honored. She wasn't necessarily honorable to her husband Nabal, but she did honor the heck out of David. And we know how that story went. We'll definitely talk about that another day. But the point is that it's not that you never get your needs met, but instead that you sow respect towards men, and God himself is the one that's going to reward you. So whether he rewards you with love through that man, of course, I doubt anyone's going to get married to a man who just never shows them love or anything like that. But the point is that when they're acting unlovable, when they're acting in a way that you don't find respectable, is that you still choose to respect their spirit and who God has called them to be. You still choose to see their goodwill and their good intentions and things like that. And so again, y'all, I highly, highly, highly recommend the book Cracking the Communication Code by Emerson Eggerichs. today we're talking about Esther and Vashti because that was just something that God brought to my attention. I was just studying that today and I wanted to share it on here. So I pray that it was a blessing, and make sure to follow High Value Romantic for more content on personal growth and dating tips as you journey to break the generational curse of anti-marriage and more. All right, you guys. Hope that you have a great night, and I'll talk to you another time.